How's it going? This is Dr. Dave here, and we have our very own Dr. Jenny Lee. She practices out in Singapore. She's a chiropractor, colleague, friend, fitness supermodel, and doing some big things in Singapore. So how's it going, Jenny?
Great. It's evening for me, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because because if you don't know, and you know, the majority of the people that watch some of these videos, like they're coming from the United States. So I mean, our time right now is it's what we're recording on is in the morning, and over there it's 12 hours difference. So so good evening and good morning, and probably good afternoon somewhere as well too. So how's it going, Jenny?
Good. It's been just a day of doing work, working out, taking her. I have a 16-month-old daughter.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get started in chiropractic?
Oh, it's very interesting because I was actually on my way to be a dentist.
Okay.
Like any Asian who want to know is a doctor, lawyer.
The med school was too hard.
Yeah, not smart enough to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually on my way to be a dentist, and I worked in my dentist office for about 3 months during summer holiday, and
Okay.
after that, I hated it. I mean, like, you have no idea how filthy people's mouths are, and I don't see myself looking at people's mouths for the rest of my life. So, but I was always into healthcare. I have a biology degree, pre-med, from Iowa State University. So I know I'm going to the healthcare field. I'm not so much in the research, which I did dabble in when I during my college years, but I know I wanted to be in the healthcare field. So then some of my friends actually recommend me to try chiropractic, because they were saying like chiropractic, you can get to work with all different type of people. You have a wide range of patient background, and it's a low risk. So, like, you don't have to worry about risk of surgeries, any accident or not accident. Yeah, any risk with practicing. So yeah, that's how I get into it. I mean, I'm interested in human bodies. I'm interested in health and wellness in general. So yeah, that's why I decided to go to chiropractic school at Palmer Davenport.
Oh, nice.
Right.
And then like, and all this discussion, was this back in Asia, or were you in the United States right now?
I was living in the United States. I was born in China, but I moved to Ames, Iowa. Yes, all the places.
How old were you when you moved?
13 years old. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that means you speak Chinese, Mandarin.
Yes, I do. I actually got a whole lot better since I moved here. So yes. There you go.
Good. Okay, so then you moved over there, and then you moved to Iowa, out of all places, right? The founding of where chiropractic was. So I mean, was a chiropractic like, because obviously I've never lived in Iowa. I lived in a state similar to Iowa, which is like Oklahoma, right? But I mean, is chiropractic like everyone's like running around well adjusted, or is it like a typical other town in the world?
I mean, like, now I look back my time at Palmer, I do find that was very precious 4 years that I really did not appreciate it when I was there. But
Sure.
Now I think back, there's a lot of them. Positive memories. That's where actually I started to develop my leaderships. So if you some of you guys don't know, the reason how I know Dr. Dave is through WCCS.
Exactly.
Which is I was part of a Palmer steering council, part of WCCS, and that's what I think, and that's where I really find that I'm really into being involved. Actually I have a passion to raise voice for the people who don't.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because a lot of people that watch these videos are students that are currently in or just getting ready to graduate. And that's huge. Something you said was, yeah, I mean, I may not be the poster child of saying, hey, you should go to a lot of clubs, because I was a part of a lot of clubs whenever I started at Parker. So just because you're doing things, do things Janie's way, where you're involved and you still pass classes. Just because you're in a bunch of clubs and you're helping out the schools, you're helping other people, doesn't mean that they won't kick you out of school. So take advice from me. Don't get kicked out of chiropractic school because it's expensive. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you don't know what WCCS is the World Congress of Chiropractic Students. There's things to do locally at your school, right? So, like Jenny was a part of student council, which is super important, right? Because I believe not only is it a great leadership process, but it's also to hone in your speaking skills, how to play well with others. One thing that I do know is chiropractors are rebels by nature. So, I mean, it's one thing to be surrounded by a tribe of rebels, but then it's also another thing to lead a tribe of rebels as well, too. So that's excellent. Yeah.
I want to jump into the whole leadership things because I have been running my own business. I have a chiropractic clinic here in Singapore, and we're ready to expand. And I also have a second business, which if you want to know about it, we can talk about that. So the one thing I want to share about through this whole student council is like during my year with student council, I actually representing the minority of my at Palmer, which is which is 10% of student population. So for us, every month, or we're dealing with how to deal with administrations to give more rights for the international students, either get more access to more resources or like discount apartment. So there's like a lot of negotiations, like you initially, that really gave me a platform to practicing how to, get in a negotiation with terms. Initially I was such a rookie, I was going like, you have to give me this because we did it. And the ministry like, no, I don't give it to you because we don't have it. And over the year, I started developing like, okay, I need to show them if they jump on my proposal, what they can get out of it.
Yeah.
What's the value for them to take a yes on my proposal? So that's like biggest lessons I learned is, how to propose something that's a win-win situation for both parties. Then you have a possibility to form collaborations or potential more partnerships that can benefit both parties. So that's one thing I learned through my experience with student council.
Yeah, because both student council, if it's run the correct way, and also WCCS2 was also my first experience of Robert's Rules. And once again, as chiropractors, I would say the majority are typical rebels. They think outside of the box, and you know what, whoever screams loudest is going to win, right? And I do believe that is important at certain times, right? To negate all the different rules and just go straight to the source. But then there's also rules and processes, right? To be able to make sure that everyone's heard. Just because someone has a loud voice doesn't mean that they're always right. So it's like we want to make sure that everyone has a voice. And it was definitely humbling to me to be able to sit through the process of learning with WCCS because a lot of times people think like, okay, I'm going to go part of this student organization. Is this going to be really serious? Is this going to be really something that I can get value out of or even put value into? And that's, for me as well, too, has been both the case. And now we're being able to have conversations about bigger things that's happening in the world right now. So you went through Palmer, and then you graduated. Obviously, you're not in the United States right now. So what was the decision that made you to go back to Singapore?
So I before I moved here, I want to be here once as a tourist. After I graduated from Palmer, I actually really want to practicing abroad. At that time, my now husband, but boyfriend back then, Dr. Jeff Wader, he was practicing with Dr. Lee and Shugo at the Center of Chiropractic Shugo, Lima. Yeah. And I visited twice, and I was the first batch of the best mission trip ever. Yeah, I was the first batch of that, and I just really enjoy the fact about practicing abroad because it's very interesting. Like in Palmer, you learn how to explain chiropractic to your patients, but if a practice abroad is a blank canvas, they have no idea what it is. So you can take your joy of creating what they want to see as a chiropractic. I mean, good and bad ways. You know, some people abuse that kind of ability, but you know, you have a blank canvas to tell them like what this can offer to them. So that's the biggest part I really attractive. So then I practiced 1 year in Hong Kong. Really like to be in Asia for obvious reason.
You're female.
I travel to. Then I actually just want to travel. So great, Hong Kong's a hub. I like to be there, but the work is really stressful. After 1 year, was either having to make a decision, either go back to the States or continue to practice in Asia, but definitely not in Hong Kong. At that time, some of my friends were practicing in Singapore, so they were saying like, hey, since you're already here, I think there's no culture shock for you since you can survive 1 year in Asia. So they recommend me to perhaps try Singapore. So I came, and that was 7 years ago.
Gotcha.
So never left the island.
So what like went into the thought process? I mean, did you feel like some nervousness, some, like, hey, is your parents still in your family still in like the United States, or like you still have family in the United States, or is people like all over?
All over, I have family still in the States. I have family still in China. I don't have any family here in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think for anyone, it's definitely nerve-wracking. Even you just move to another city. It's
Sure.
a brand new environment. You have to learn everything new. So I think scary for sure, but I was actually quite exciting at the same time, because
Sure.
This is my first time actually living in a big city, because Ames, Devon, but not really in the metropolitan city type. So it was really exciting for me for first couple of years. I get to travel quite a bit, and that's really enhanced the experience in here.
Yeah. And if someone's watching and they're working abroad or working, away from home, like, for example, like I'm practicing in Orlando, but the majority of my family is in Oklahoma. Like, you have any like tips or ideas of what you do to keep yourself grounded? I mean, do you do things with your family, or do you reach out to them, or what are the things that keep you sane while you're, away from, a lot of your loved ones, especially being, by yourselves out in Singapore?
Yeah, I mean, like, I have to consider I'm very lucky, because I moved here with now husband before boyfriend. So
Mm-hmm.
There's always someone with me.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
That definitely makes things a lot easier. I think, I mean, like, I moved to the States when I was 13 years old, as a pre-teenage girl, moving to a strange city. That was a big transition for me. So I kind of, learn how to adapt and to the new environment. I think, and over the year, I have encountered, numerous chiropractors who came from Australia, US, working in Singapore, and then some of them ends up to staying here in a very short period of time. And then the one thing I noticed is the reason they couldn't stay here in long term, obviously the culture, or the financial means. Like, they couldn't. Singapore is a very expensive city
Mm-hmm.
to live in, and it's very cutthroat in this society, and you either make it or don't. There's very, very rare people can stay in between. So, I mean, to survive in such society, I guess you needed to just be really open-minded and willing to try new things, and your own perspective is going to be challenged and changed and even transformed for sure, and that will create a lot of uncertainties, perhaps more, or things you feel extremely uncomfortable with. And I think that's the decision the individual need to make. Do they want to adapt or stay comfortable? Obviously, stay comfortable, they're probably going to stay in one place, not going to go anywhere. But if you want to adapt, thinking outside the box, be a rebel, the who knows what opportunities are waiting for you outside the other side of it.
Yeah. So what was chiropractic practice like in the beginning for you?
My own? You mean my own practice?
No, just in the beginning, right after like graduating. I mean, what was it like for you?
Oh my God, I talk way too much about how chiropractic works. And I remember the first few. Oh my God, this is like terrible, like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I remember first as a new grad, I go through all the trainings, trying to explain patients why they, what most of them are just curious. Like they said, okay, I have this, I'm curious, what is it you're doing can help me. And, I talk a lot, this is the spine, this is the stuff.
Yeah.
And then everything, and I just like, and later on, like, okay, just stick to what makes sense to them. So over the years, I kind of stick to the point, like, don't try to elaborate too much about that during the first day. Like if the patient does stay, you can continue to educate them what chiropractic can offer, what can it do for them. But I think just, stick to the as simple as possible. Less is more. So
less is more. So hard bone, soft nerve. That's it?
Yes. Yeah. It's no good. Pain. I hope. Yeah. They're good.
I mean, I like you mentioning that because, it's the same thing with me too. I mean, there's a saying in chiropractic, don't BJ to CJ them, right? It's like, hey, let's just keep it super simple. And, and not even like, I also mention that as well too, when I'm speaking to to patients, clients, new practice members, that I'll say it's super simple. I mean, and I'm refining it every single day, making sure that I can, make sure that I'm, communicating them eye to eye and stuff like that. And a lot of rapport, touching and, and being present, but also I acknowledge it too. Yeah. I mean, it's a simple story, but has these profound effects, I mean, so I go, yeah, I explained it really quickly, but hey, it's still awesome stuff. So, so in the beginning, like you did work with somebody else. And then at what point did you decide like, hey, you know what, I think it's time for me to open up my own thing?
I think it's after first 2 years in Singapore. Actually, it was really interesting. Another reason I'm going to Asia was like, I want to bring chiropractic to China.
Sure.
That's a huge market, and I think I can make it. But 7 years later, I'm still here. And not
sure.
Okay. So I think after 2 years of being in Singapore, and I feel like there's a room for me to grow. And Singapore is just very pro business. They're very encouraging entrepreneurship, SME, small medium enterprise. So and I have few people who graduate, few of my classmates from Iowa State University who graduated, not chiropractor, finance, engineering, actually working in Singapore. So I get in touch with them, join a local BNI and the Business Network International to talking to other entrepreneurs. Uh-huh. And I think this is a successful story, and I think hopefully it can be inspirational to someone. Sure. So when I was doing BNI, I met this a guy who's now a friend of mine, but at that time he was just starting his POS system, which is a point of sales, which is you can order it or whatnot. So he very humble background. He's an engineer himself, and he developed this software. It's actually essentially an app. Can help people to eliminate mistake by ordering. And in that time, I met him. He just one person, one show, going door to door to restaurants, be like, "Would you like to try that?"
Oh wow!
So
okay.
I met him, but over the year, fast forward now. So right now, his company is worth about $3.5 million.
Wow.
So like you have people like that in your circles. It's kind of give you that inspiration, motivation that, hey, maybe one day that could be me. I can make something super awesome and, expand my business. So I think that's really, really give me a lot of courage, a lot of support, influence for me to, like go venture out to, starting my own business here.
Yeah. And, if people are watching and, they're not super familiar with Singapore, I mean, just imagine like New York City, right? Singapore, we're talking like Tokyo, we're talking Hong Kong, these are the bustling business centers, just like we have New York, Chicago, Miami and stuff like that, and, it's the same, but in the Asian markets for sure. Yeah. So you opened up your own practice. What was that like in the beginning?
It was so stressful for the year. Okay, so in Singapore is again cutthroat, society. Make it you don't, because the rental is really high, manpower is really high.
Okay.
So you better make it work within 6 months, because there's no. I think I talked to some of fans back in the States. If you're still not cash positive for the first 6 months, you still can cut some corners, maybe to keep the business running until you become cash positive. But Singapore, no, like the rental is so high, you got to make that cash positive or break even by 6 months, or otherwise you're gonna go out of business very soon. And then that was happened to me during the first 3 months, because I just really having the hardest time to getting people into the door.
Sure.
And now I look back for all these, because when I was working for other companies, I do have like coaching and trainings. And all for that, the coaches are out there who say like, you just have to be a motivated person, good person to good service. And people are like, total bullshit. I want to do this. Because in this world, whoever is still using that believes their work, you are living on a rock for the longest time. Because now the consumer behavior is tremendous different than ever. You cannot using the old way thinking you will give you the same result. That does not work at all. So during the 3 months times, I start to do a lot of social media content creatings.
Got it.
And that really generated my initial set of a business to make my business break even by 6 months. Actually, yeah. So I'm very, 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 I feel very, very lucky and fortunate that works out for me. Because, without that, I wouldn't able to keep my business running now, which is about almost 4 years. Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the social media content creation. So, I mean, like one of the things that I first realized that you were practicing in Singapore was because, all the content you were pumping out in regards to doing fitness and stuff like that. I mean, does it parlay into that, or did you keep the social media content different from the practice growing? How did you go about that?
This is something I learned from at BNI, because at BNI, they always ask you is, who are your ideal customer base? So for whoever is thinking about going, you must know your customer and who they are, what they are, and where they come from. So they always ask the key question is, did you think about the best customer you have in the past? Is a man, is a woman, is a working profession, is a stay-at-home mom, what's the age, what's the hobby in life? So have that picture in mind. That will be your ideal customer base, and then you needed to broaden that demographic. And at that time, I've been practicing with other practice before. They're very, general, like a family.
Sure.
I've always seen everybody. And I learned that if you're a chiropractor for everybody, you're a chiropractor for nobody. Because everybody is fighting for the entire pie. So what I did that time is like, I narrowed down the people I work with the best is the people who are active, working profession, mainly men in the mid-20s to early 40s. So these are my demographic. So I just market towards them. I find out where they hang out, what they're into, and use the social media in creating content that interesting them. Not from, hey, come to see me because I have $28 off of
Sure.
No promotions. Just really giving a lot of content, giving a lot of information, educating them what it is. It's a long shot, but when a customer coming back, they already know the value of what we provide. So you actually don't have to give any discount or anything for them to come back to see you. So that's the one thing I learned is another guy, Gary V.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah.
Yeah. He gave me a lot of information during my early social media marketing days. I took a lot of his course online as well. So he wrote this book called Jab, 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 Hook, which is exactly what we're talking about. Is creating content, brand awareness, grief-free as much as you can, then ask. Then when you do that ask, it's powerful because people will say yes.
Yep. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. So, if people aren't super familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, it's really quick, easy to find him online, and he is pumping out tons and tons of social media content. But yeah, this is exactly what we're doing now. So, and what jabs are, to further go on, to explain, is jabs are adding value or giving value. So it's, either, connecting with somebody that's, doing it well in Singapore, or giving tips and tricks, or just going out there and just being of service of others. Because I see it as like an emotional bank account, right? And then we can't just go run into a bank and without putting any money into it, and you don't even know who this bank is. You just run in there, you're just driving down the street, and you meet them for the first time, and you go in there and it's like, hey, I want to withdraw $1,000, and they're like, I don't know who you are. Like, you haven't even filled out the paperwork. I don't know anything, right? So, however, if I were going there week in, week out, putting in $1, putting in $2, putting $100, putting in $500. After a while, like, I'm getting more momentum, and then at that point, at the time is right, whenever I reach that $1,000 mark, then I can go back into them and say, hey, can I borrow $1,000? And they're willing to do that too, because he did that to me. I followed him for a long, long time, and then he finally made an ask when he was writing a book, and he's like, hey, it's $13. If you've been following me for a long time, will you buy my book? I was like, I will.
Sold.
It's probably the easiest $13 he's ever made. Probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's huge, and what that says is that, content creation means a lot, right? Where do you think, doing all of this outside of the box thinking, putting the old ways behind and moving forward with this different consumer behavior, like, how have you move forward in practice now?
I think because like, I'm also a millennial. I'm born in the 80s. Like, we grew up with iPhones and whatnot, and I am a strong believer in technology on automations. And in my office, I really trying to automate as much as I can. Even one day Singapore has a robot secretary, I'll be the first one, like, take my money, give me that robot secretary today. If my staff are watching, like, no job pretty soon. Anyway, so I'm a strong believer in technology, and in your office, we're trying to do whatever we can to automate everything, and from an inquiry all the way to coming to the door. So I think if you're still not a believer in technology, like if you're still in the office who doing files, it's time to change, because sooner or later everybody is gonna be paperless and the database, cloud-based. So don't get behind the trend, because this is the one thing. I know one now it's biting me in the ass. Yes, I got on Instagram when Instagram started to coming in. At that time, I was still working for someone else. I was just posting like once in 2 weeks. But just by doing that, I have very good engagement. But I never really engage into Instagram and things like, what is this thing? Like, nobody gonna look at pictures.
Sure.
Never use hashtag, never understand it. So I had my account actually for the longest time. And by the time I opened my own business, and I'm looking around all these Instagram influencers who have 20,000, 100,000 followers, and anything, this is 5 years ago, anything they post is like, oh my God, I want to get the link or download. And I thought, like, wow, that's the easiest platform to think about it. If I have 20,000 followers and I promoting a service, and probably 1% of them will say yes. And then the 1% is a huge number if you have 20,000. So at that time, I know that because of my ignorance, this Instagram thing really bite me in the ass. So everything's like, no, I will not let that happen again. True. So, whatever social media platform that is popular in Singapore, I make sure I get on it. And I make sure I invest in time and money to build my following and build my brand.
Yeah, and that's huge, because like, a lot of times people just go, who really follows this and who really follows that. And, I remember, you know, like you're talking about Instagram, and like I remember somebody was talking about LinkedIn, you know, and that's the one thing that I'm very bullish on right now in regards to professional referrals and stuff like that. And then, you know, I was the first person to think the same thing too. I was like, man, like I probably check LinkedIn, you know, once a day, or I mean, once a year, maybe once every 2 years or something like that. You know, I never go on it. I'm like, and you know, it reminds me of going to the gym. You know, like everybody knows that if you go to the gym, there's nothing there except to start working out, you know, or start doing cardio or something like that. So like the goal for me, for all my patients, the people that I serve, is like, just show up. If you can just show up, more than likely, like you're going to start working out. Like if you just show up to Instagram, yeah, like more than likely, like you're going to post something, you're going to like, you're going to comment, right? Or like with like LinkedIn, like if you log into LinkedIn, chances are like you're going to do a couple of things, right? You know, and if you till it, if you grow it, if you just spend a little bit of time and actually be strategic about it, rather than doing it as a way to distract yourself from, you know, doing your homework or doing your files and stuff like that, or, you know, spending time with your kids or whatever. But it's a thing that will have a return on investment if you just spend time and be very strategic about it. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part with some of chiropractors who are, you know, either in our, or at least my generation.
Sure.
You know,
I was born in the 80s too.
So they just, I don't have this much time, you know, like when the posting, and I do not good with the cameras and all that. So anyway, this is something you need to really to kind of advance yourself. You know, every year you take the continuing education course that advance your technique and everything. I mean, if you're running your business, you need to do yourself or due diligence to advance your marketing skill is one. So, and you know, social media is going to be the next thing. I mean, it is the thing. It's coming. It's not the next thing. Is it the things now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because it reminds me of this back in the day, and you know, Walt Disney, because I live in Orlando right now, has an expression of like, there's no inventions, right? You know, like everything is repackaged from before. So, like, if we think about it, like, I mean, what are these blogs? Like newspapers, right? You know, these, you know, what are emails? It's, you know, those direct, you know, coupons that are in the mail. You know, what's this video that we're doing right now? Hey, these are the commercials that are in between the TV shows that you watch all the time, right? You know, what are all these different things? You know, what are this? You know, what are podcasts? I mean, those are the radio shows that people would tune in, right? But now people can be picky and choose what they want to listen to. And two, the the area is leveled, right? I mean, so now we're able to put out content for less money. So so the opposite is, you know, before, like, you had to spend a lot of money to try to get into the newspapers or the phone book. You know, I don't know if people remember what that is. You know, putting a coupon in the
Yeah, I don't think,
right?
Yeah.
You know, but now, I mean, you know, yeah, it's the same thing, but it's different in regards to just making yourself stand out in a noisy environment. And, you know, and that's what Jenny's talking about, is really honing in and finding your niche, right? And finding what is your target market, who do you best provide the best service to, you know, and tailor everything you do towards them, and that'll naturally attract those people as well too. So yeah, that's huge. Awesome. And then, so now, so you're doing chiropractic work right now. So what's your vision for chiropractic in Singapore?
I mean, like when we first started our company, we have a mission to be, you know, the most trusted chiropractic providers in Southeast Asia. I mean, that's still very much our vision now, is to be the trusted chiropractic providers in Southeast Asia. I mean, Singapore is great. I mean, but there's only 5.3 million people on this island. It's the size of Chicago, so the physical constraint is there. But 2 hours, we are in Bangkok, Thailand, which have 50 million people. You know, and again, Myanmar, Cambodia, 25 million, or if I get the number wrong. So I believe there is still a market outside of Singapore for chiropractic, and because there's no foundation there in the first place, so I think, again, it's very exciting. You go there, you're the pioneer, and you can kind of like design or create whichever way that you want it to. Obviously, some people abuse that, but, you know, making sure you have integrity for the professions, but it's very exciting to create blank canvas to whatever you want you envision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. So then, I mean, so you're looking at growing in Singapore as well too, you know, I mean, and then, so obviously she's looking for some awesome docs to help support her cause. I mean, and, you know, if you listened before too, then, you know, she's detailed all the things, different things that you need to be successful to be working within Singapore and working with her as well too. So, you know, so talk about, you know, this other business that you've been focusing some time and energy to.
Okay, yeah. So this is the non-chiropractic at all. So when I was actually pregnant, doing through my maternity leaves and whatnot, so I came up with this idea to create an online platform with what is called Boss Mom Asia. Basically, it's online platforms offer part-time jobs or flexi work arrangement or work from home arrangements for a stay-at-home mom. And I have two other partners. They're also mom entrepreneur as well. One is a corporate secretary, accounting service company, and another one is an event company. So, you know, again, that's through my BNI communities. I found my business partner to, you know, a joint venture on this platform. And the reason I got this is a little bit of story behind it. Is when my daughter is about 6 months old, she got a very severe viral infection.
Okay, wow.
So as a first time parent, I was extremely nervous and scared, and just really don't know how to deal with it because, you know, she had a hard time to breathe, and we're rushing to the hospital, going to the emergency room, you know, all that. So it's a very, very scary situation for me. And as a first time mom, it's like I felt really, really helpless, and I don't have any family member with me, so just me and my husband here.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, you know, because I run my own business, I have that flexibility to be in a hospital with her for about that 4 days time. But during the hospital stay, you know, there's a mom, right, staying in the same room with us, and she has a 2-year-old boy who had dengue. If you don't know what dengue it is, it's a tropical mosquito bite illness, and it can be very dangerous for elderly and young children because there's no medication or no drugs to help you with it. You pretty much just fight on your own, you know, like say, good luck, here's some hydration and electric, and you know, unless you're going to shock, we're just gonna observe you. Yeah. So the mom was, again, like watching her son going through those process because, you know, they're two, they can be very fuzzy. They still cannot verbalize how they feel. So it's like, you know, with the pain that goes through, you add even more on that. So during the day, you know, she was on the phone, you know, talking to her colleagues, like, hey, I have this project done. Can you help me with it? I have this client coming. So I can't be there because my son in the hospital, and now we are under 24-hour observation. So just like a lot of restrictions in her, you know, on top of, you know, taking care of her son. So at that moment, I feel there must be something we can do about this, right? Like, we're living in a pretty modern society that women has different responsibilities, but I believe there is got to be a way to, you know, help a mom to handle this better. And I started looking, and obviously I've been in Singapore, at least there's no such solutions. So that's why you know, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for solutions for things we cannot solve, right? Yeah. 100%. And earn a profit from that. No kidding, probably this is the second part. Yeah. So and then I proposed the idea to two of my business partners, and we look into stats. In Singapore, there are 250,000 women from 25 to 65 who are not working, had a degree but not working because of family arrangement, either taking care of their children or taking care of the elderly. So then that's the platform started, and I'm using the same type of marketing approach to creating this platform. It's basically content creating. We interview moms who, you know, running their own business and taking care of more than one children.
Wonderful.
You know, at the same time, yeah, and tell the women out there, you know, it is possible for you to have work and, you know, taking care of your kids at the same time. So so every year, every 3 months, we host a physical event to create a community that is, you know, just women come together, talk about struggle and challenges, and sometimes we just, as a mom, we just want someone to hear what we're going through, exactly. And offer solutions along the way. Yeah.
I mean, and, you know, that's huge too, because I believe that as well too. Whether it's going to be with the demographic of moms or a demographic of chiropractors or demographic of dentists, right? You know, I think, these, bringing people together so that they can, number one, know that they're not alone. Number two, have a place to have a resource to be able to help them. And three, you know what, like celebrate successes, and not always be, complaining about everything else, but celebrate, and champion other people as well too, because, once you get to a certain point, and you learn, you got help and mentored by so many people, it's time for you to give back as well too. So, but yeah, I mean, this is so awesome. I love what you're doing out in Singapore, not only for the health, but also the wealth of the moms out there as well too. So kudos to you. And obviously if you want to reach out, if Dr. Jenny has inspired you in some way, feel free to reach out to her, in any of the platforms. She's all over the place. So feel free to do that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.